Just over there, darling.
Julian and I would like to thank everyone for their kindness, the kindness that has been shown over the past few weeks. Every action, every show of support means so much for us, and we would like to thank you all for helping us continue this fight. It's a fight for Julian's life, a fight for press freedom, and a fight for the truth. Over the past 4 weeks, the true nature of this prosecution has come to light. Julian is being punished for performing a public service that we have all benefited from. He is in prison because he informed you of actual crimes and atrocities being committed by a foreign power. That foreign power has ripped away his freedom and has torn our family apart. That power wants to put him in incommunicado detention in the deepest, darkest hole of its prison system for the rest of his life. Julian faces a 175-year prison sentence. Most of the charges relate to simply receiving and possessing government documents. Under oath, the prosecution concedes that it has no evidence that a single person has ever come to physical harm because of these publications. Julian is not a US citizen. He has never lived there. He did not sign an oath to the US government. He should not be sent there. Julian's duty is to the public, to publish evidence of wrongdoing, and that's what he did. The US administration's prosecution is trying to make normal journalistic activities, which are entirely legal in this jurisdiction, an extraditable offense. If he's sent to the United States, Julian will not be able to argue the public interest of his publications, because there is no public interest defense. And because he is not a US citizen, the US says that he does not have free speech protections. The US administration will not stop with him. The US says that it can put any journalists anywhere in the world on trial in the US if it doesn't like what they are publishing. The US administration is exploiting the lopsidedness of the US-UK extradition treaty to deny justice to the family of Harry Dunn and to force cruelty and injustice on ours. This case is already chilling press freedom. It is a frontal assault on journalism, on the public's right to know, and our ability to hold governments, domestic and foreign, to account. Terrible crimes were committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and terrible crimes were committed at Guantanamo Bay. The perpetrators of those crimes, they're not in prison, but Julian is. Julian is a publisher. Julian is also a son. He's a friend. He's my fiancé and a father. Our children need their father. Julian needs his freedom. And our democracy needs a free press. Thank you.
Let's get her out of here, and then I'll take the microphone.
Just well done, all of you lot. Fantastic. You're quite encouraged.
Let me just say a few words. It is very hard to sum up the feelings after these 4 weeks in the courtroom. We've heard dozens of witnesses in this courtroom. And those witnesses, journalists, academics, intellectuals, they've exposed lies. All the lies that have been presented in the case against Julian Assange. There was no hacking. There was no conspiracy. There was no harm. And when we peeled off the layers and layers of lies that have been presented, we are left with the truth. And that truth has been presented in this court in a very bleak manner. The truth is, this is journalism on trial. This is the fate and the future of journalism that we were hearing witnesses talk about here. But the other horrible truths that were exposed as well were the truth exposed by WikiLeaks, which we again heard of. The assassinations of innocent civilians, the torture, the illegality in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Guantanamo. Those truths were exposed here. I ask you, would you not agree that this is not a trial of Julian Assange? In essence, it was a trial of our time and our civilization. Because we heard about all these horrible incidents that happened on our watch and in our name. We cannot change the past, but we need the truth about the past. But we can change the fate of Julian Assange. And after all these 4 weeks, we should be in no doubt that there's only one thing that has to happen as an outcome of these proceedings. If Julian Assange is extradited, it will mean darkness for us all. It cannot happen. We must take a stand. There can only be one outcome: no extradition.
Well said. We're 100% with you.
Thank you. In following these days of trial, we've heard a huge amount of detail that has demolished the prosecution arguments day after day after day. But let's step back now at the end and take a view of the larger picture of what is happening here. Julian Assange has been suffering terrible deprivation of liberty. He's been suffering conditions amounting to torture. His ordeal goes on, and all because he published the truth. There is no allegation in that courtroom that anything he published was a lie. Everything he published was true, and much of that truth revealed terrible crimes, war crimes and crimes against humanity, and lies and corruption by government. And not one of the people who committed those war crimes is on trial anywhere. Instead, we have the man who had the courage to reveal those war crimes is the one whose liberty is at stake. And that is not right. And the world must say that is not right. We also have a situation where, at the time he did this publishing, Julian Assange was nowhere near the United States. The United States is claiming a universal jurisdiction to swoop down anywhere in the world and destroy the life of anybody who publishes things it does not want revealed. And this ridiculous claim of universal jurisdiction should not be accepted or tolerated for a moment in a British court, let alone granted all the panoply of justice, so-called, which is defending this indefensible situation. We've also seen the United States government, in prosecuting, argue directly that the First Amendment does not protect journalists. They have argued in detail that the Pentagon Papers judgment would not say the New York Times could not have been prosecuted under the Espionage Act. They are claiming the right to prosecute for espionage any journalist anywhere in the world who reveals national security information. And national security information about a state which constantly invades other states is information which is necessary to the liberty of everyone. We have been here, we have seen the law fighting in the halls of justice, we have seen the activists fighting outside, and this campaign will go on, because the campaign for Julian's freedom is the campaign for the freedom of everyone. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you for your support over the last 4 weeks. It's been just fantastic. It's now approaching the 11th year of Julian's arbitrary detention. Approaching the 11th year of Julian's arbitrary detention. 1.5 years under house arrest, 7.5 years locked in a room in the Ecuadorian embassy, and moving to 1.5 years in the Belmarsh maximum security prison is a crime. But also I'd like you to consider what the result of leaks and the publication of war crime. So in 2006, American soldiers in Iraq murdered an entire family. A mother, father, children, uncles, aunties, grandmother. Looking at their crime, they thought of a way out. So they called in an airstrike. It destroyed what was left of the children and their mother and father and uncles, grandfather, all of them obliterated. This was released in the cables. It gave enough insight and courage to the Iraqi government to refuse to renew the status of forces agreement. In other words, a publication of WikiLeaks and Julian stopped a war. So I'd like you to remember that. I'd also like you to keep forever in mind that these heinous deeds can be turned just as easily against us. So if we succeed in carrying upon our shoulders and using our strength to free Julian, it brings that freedom to us, and it prevents and it gives us the status and strength to resist the murderous crimes of a rogue state and its vassals. And from Julian, when I speak to him on the phone, he asks me to give thanks to the journalists and the supporters. So, from the heart, thanks.
Reporters Without Borders has attempted to carry out our job as professional NGO observers at these proceedings the past 4 weeks. We have been unable to do so because this judge has decided not to accept, not to accommodate the role of NGO observers as any different to the public. We have gained access to these proceedings only by fighting our way into court each day with the support of an entire network of activists. This is not how we are accustomed to doing our jobs in any country, and I personally have not experienced this in monitoring any case anywhere. What we have witnessed is concerning. We have documented concerns with regard to Mr. Assange's right to a fair trial. We have serious concerns about open justice, and we retain our concerns about the substance of the case, which we do believe to be politically motivated, as was evidenced quite aptly over the past 4 weeks. We maintain that Mr. Assange has been targeted for his contributions to public interest reporting, and that this case will have historical implications for journalism, for press freedom. That is what is at stake. So it's not just a violation of Mr. Assange's rights, although that is of utmost concern as well. It is a violation of the public's right to information. The public had a right to know what was happening in these proceedings, and very few have been able to gain access. The public also had a right to the information that was published as a result of the leaked information. So that is what I want to leave here to really hammer home for those who are still skeptical about aspects of this case, who may have decided that they believe one thing or the other about Mr. Assange, is that it is the implications for the public, to the public's right to information, for the future of public interest reporting in this country, in the United States, and internationally. So at Reporters Without Borders, we call again for the charges against Mr. Assange to be dropped, for him to be released and certainly not extradited to the United States. We believe that he should be released unconditionally, but we have also heard ample evidence of humanitarian basis for his release as well. We have said that this could be a matter of life or death, and that cannot be overlooked either in these proceedings. So we will stick with it. We will continue to press the court to reconsider its policy for future hearings, because this is, quite frankly, unacceptable. And we will continue to do our job to the best of our ability.
The lack of access to journalists during this extradition hearing is an abomination. The lack of media attention is an abomination, even not just among corporate news media, but also independent news media. Some of them even putting out statements saying that, oh, where's the attention on the Assange trial? And criticizing them, and then continuing not to cover the Assange hearing. This is an attack on press freedoms. It's an attack on whatever semblance of justice the UK system has. It's a violation of EU law. It's a violation of UK law, US law, international law. And it's a fucking abomination that we have Julian Assange being put on trial for exposing war crimes. We have Chelsea Manning that's been tortured and then thrown back once again in jail for exposing war crimes, uncovering mass graves of 15,000 Iraqis. And the people who committed these war crimes, Tony Blair, George Bush, Jack Straw, they're all gone. Paul Wolfowitz, Donald Rumsfeld. We didn't even hear their names once inside this goddamn courtroom. You know, this might be the City of London, but it's the United States that's holding the gavel. They're the ones running this show, and this is disgusting. And everything that WikiLeaks did, everything that Julian Assange did, these were valiant acts of anti-imperialism. And they need to be portrayed as such, and we need to recall the real crimes that they exposed here. It's not just an attack on freedom of press. It's an attack on the very lives of people that are bombed every day, the people that are killed every day. They're ants or something. This is unacceptable. And they want to make us feel sorry for imaginary informants that were never hurt. And the United States, by their own admission, told us that no one was ever harmed by WikiLeaks. So what's going on here? This is a disgusting violation of Julian Assange's human rights. It's a disgusting violation of journalistic freedoms and the freedom of press. And it's an absolute mockery of any kind of semblance of justice in this country. Thank you.
Parliament for Poplar and Limehouse in East London, and from my limited observations of the hearing today, I felt that the hearing was really rushed, and I'm not sure why that might be. Is it because there's a political motivation behind the case? Last week, in government, we saw the second reading of the Overseas Operations Bill get passed, and that is, a signal and a sign that we are seeing torture abroad, and not held to account. And press freedom be important, and that's what Julian has been working on for the last 10 years. But what's really important as well is that everybody deserves the right to a fair hearing, and Julian does not have access to his legal team as much as he needs to. He's in solitary confinement. He will be and maybe have access to his legal team perhaps for an hour every fortnight, and that's not acceptable. And he needs access to his legal support. And we need to know about war crimes abroad so that we can actually reflect on ourselves as a country abroad. That's what we've learnt in the last 10 years. We've learnt about our activities abroad. We've learnt about what shouldn't be happening abroad. We've learnt about torture that should never have happened. And in order to really, really change that, we need to ensure that there is free press reporting. And that's why this case is so important. And, I want to extend my solidarity to the friends and family of Julian, many of whom I've met today, in their struggle and their journey ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. I think this is all over, but the supporters want to celebrate WikiLeaks' 14th birthday by releasing some balloons. So they're asking Kristen and John to do that. So I'll let you do it.
Gabriel coming as well.
Thank you. Thank you for all. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you. Some talking if you want. I'll just talk and then you can release one.
Thank you, everybody.
Can I ask a question?
Can I just thank the supporters for this event? I mean, what Julian set out on his journey almost 14 years ago. I am fairly certain John and his brother Gabriel would not envision that he would be spending his nights in Belmarsh, these days in his courtroom. What he did was extremely important, and the underlying principle that was driving him was to give us information, to provide us with information that would empower us. A very noble idea. So it's been in a sense, it's nice to reflect back to the good things that WikiLeaks did. And let's hope we can get Julian out so he can continue the work. Because in the dark times we live, we definitely need it. Thank you.
Just from the World Socialist website, we just want to ask a question in relationship to the
last Tuesday's debate between Biden and Trump, in which Trump stated that he will not accept the election results. And what do you think of the implications that has for this trial?
I'm not going to comment on that. You know, what implication will it have for the American public and the rest of the world? You know, we've heard negative statements from both camps, both from Biden camp and from Trump's camp. It is. I don't see that having a bearing on the outcome, but at least we know that this has been driven by the crowds around Donald Trump. We know the words of Attorney General Barr. We know the extraordinary claims by Mike Pompeo when he was CIA director, and how he, as Secretary of State, has pushed this agenda. It needs to end. And it needs to end when people wake up and say enough is enough. That's all I have to say about that.
What do you think also about the fact that the US legal team are using a lot of their material from The Guardian? And what do you think that has? What do you think the implications that has?
Well, the legal team working on behalf of the Americans have been using extraordinary material, and the book you're referring to is not a very reliable source. And you know, some journalists that have been associated with that book have been guilty of basically putting a fabrication on pertaining to Julian Assange on the front page of The Guardian. So how can you trust that? Just before this hearing started, they threw in a so-called second superseding indictment, a totally new document pertaining to issues that Julian's lawyers were totally unprepared for. They changed this constantly. And the judge ruled against throwing it out, which of course should have been the right thing to do. You cannot, in the middle of a proceeding, just change the legal documents, the indictments, and they had to actually put in a fresh extradition request. It's outrageous. Every step of the way in this case, there has been a violation against core principles in the book when it comes to just society. That should be blatant to everybody. It underlines, of course, the essence of it all. It is not about the truth. It is a political persecution. And I say, and I've said it often, and I'll say it again, it's shame that at least in Western Europe, but for sure in this country, there is only one political prisoner in a maximum security prison. And who is he? A publisher, a journalist, who gave us the truth. What is it's nonsensical, it cannot go on. That's it. Thank you.
On behalf of the supporters, wish you strength in this